is episode 29 of Blazing Geeks. I'm Nick.
And I'm Robert.
And talked about at the end of our previous episode, this is the start of our...
Batmonth.
Yeah.
I cannot wait, man. This is the first of a long series of
episodes that we're going to be doing dedicated to Batman.
The greatest superhero that...
pretty much the greatest superhero in comics.
Was
we'll
it?
Just
Yeah.
flat out say that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that, totally. And please try to prove me wrong.
Yeah. I think we just pissed off
I
don't know how many fanboys we
I
pissed
dare
off
you.
by saying that.
Superman sucks, Wolverine sucks.
Krypton sucks.
But seriously, no,
Yeah,
Batman,
anyway.
He's number one.
Yeah. Anyway, this is our first episode we're doing, and this one we're going to talk about, obviously, the beginning, where it started with the comic books.
Right. So let's get right into it. Nick, how about a little bit of history of Batman?
Well, I wasn't going to go into that because I think everybody listening already knows, so why should we go into a dull, long, detailed thing about it?
True. We all know
So
Bob Kane, 1930s.
With artist
Bill Finger, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
The Batman was born, borrowed off of, many previous things.
Like Sherlock Holmes.
And Zorro.
The Shadow.
Yep. To create this new character. What?
Should you really use that term, new?
Well, to create an amalgam of all things cool.
From the 1940s.
Right, well, to take all the cool pulp aspects and bring them into the modern day. Which is something that's really carried through to all the comic books. They all have that kind
Batman started that dark character.
Right, and they all have that kind of pulp feel, He is part detective, part, literal crime fighter. Not supervillain crime fighter. He's also like a literal fighting crime in the streets type guy.
Well, like that featurette we watched on Comcast about how Bat's about using the image of a devil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Bat's representing the devil.
Right, like anti-hero, dark imagery, and, a noir aspect. So, that's really just one of the many ways that...
Well, Batman's not anti-hero. He doesn't,
one of the many ways that make Batman unique. Well, he's a dark hero, not an anti-hero. He doesn't kill...
Well, anti-hero, kills for the...
Right. He's not like the Punisher or Spawn.
Or Dark Man.
Yeah. But, that's the fine line. That's another unique aspect of the character, walking the line between dark hero and anti-hero.
Well,
or insane and insane, or a million other dualities.
Well, yeah, because he has all this dark rage inside him that, well, because of the traumatic experience that, 8 years old, parents shot to death in front of you, bleeding, on the floor, bleeding to death.
Yeah, it definitely...
That's pretty traumatic. that's not going to leave you.
Right, and it didn't leave him.
Obviously.
Just pretty much consumed his entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
And a boy and a man who had the means to go across the world and actually do something about it.
Yeah.
To not have to worry about anything but his revenge, really.
Yeah. Or
his justice.
Pretty much anybody else that shared that experience were just along for the ride, Robin, Batgirl. Well, not Batgirl, but Robin.
Well, they kind of related to part of his pain.
Yeah.
And then joined him for a while, but
it didn't consume their lives.
It did for a while, but the thing is, no one is as driven and dedicated as Batman to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Batman's the one person that's going to do his whole life dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Without doubt. Yeah. He wavers, but, he always stays true to it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think we should talk about, our first exposure to the comics. Well, I think, the first Batman book I ever picked up was, not the recent, greatest stories that DC's publishing right now, but, it was an old one, I think from the 80s. They released of, the greatest Batman stories ever told, Volume 3. Mm-hmm. So, I appreciated, the, well, the thing is, I came into it, from the lighter side, I guess you can say, which I don't want to go into.
You have to admit, you were exposed to it through the Adam West
everybody else was suckered, when they were kids, to the campy TV show.
I don't find that as a negative, though. I thought that was a good way to introduce the character. It was you figured out Batman and a lot of his villains, and then you took it to the real level. Plus, that was a different time. It was a satire, and it was kind of funny. But
but later years, when you realize what the character really is.
That was my first exposure to, was the Adam West Batman, and then from there it went on to the Tim Burton movies, and then in 1992 started Batman the Animated Series, which is still what I think of as a definitive Batman universe. And then
Yeah.
from there, you know, the other movies, and of course the comic books were in with when I started watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
And then I started following those. And our cousin Lewis
Yeah.
had like a lot of knowledge about Batman and the other comic book superheroes, so we kind of learned from him a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the internet sprung up, and then you could look up anything you wanted whenever you wanted about it.
Yeah.
And then through all of that, there was sort of like a research and discovery of Batman and appreciation.
Yeah.
But it's very weird. It wasn't done through the comics very much for me.
No.
I mean, my understanding of Batman is actually through every other media besides his comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think.
Well, I mean, for example, in the comics, the ventriloquist and Scarface, like in the ventriloquist origin, he was he sucked basically, and he couldn't like spell words, like instead of like saying Batman, he'd say Gatman, like he couldn't pronounce like syllables or something,
Oh,
or some shit like that.
That's kind of cool, but I mean, I still.
Yeah, but that's still.
But as with everything, I always prefer the animated series version.
I mean, the psychological one. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did put a lot of psychological
Well, I
stuff.
think that ventriloquist got killed off in the comics, and now there's like a female running around.
I heard it's kind of like his dame, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like every gangster has like his girl.
Yeah.
Well, she plays the girl, and then the gangster's the ventriloquist. It was a cool origin for the new ventriloquist. It was really cool because the old one got shot and killed.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Well, I think any like other characters you want to bring up, like, well, I mean, we already talked about Batman already.
Oh, but I thought was today's focus supposed to be the comic books?
No, I just put down as like exposure. Now we're just moving into characters.
Oh, my.
I mean, not all of them, just like the notable ones.
Favorite characters for me.
Well, I have to go with Robin, because he's just a severely underrated character. Because everybody thinks Burt Ward, you know. Because if you look at it, Robin is as tragic as Batman.
Yeah, no, I think he's appreciated.
Well, I mean, in terms of, obviously Dick Grayson. I mean,
it depends on like what you're talking about, like what version of him. What version of the character do you like? We should put the version.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about the comics, the source.
Okay, so then they wouldn't think of Burt Ward in the comics. I think.
Well,
I'm
just saying that for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah. I definitely think Robin's an appreciated character. You had Dick Grayson, who went on to be Nightwing, which was a really cool turn.
Yeah.
You had Jason Todd, which ended up being killed by the Joker and then coming back.
Yeah.
And then you have
Tim
Drake, who's probably
who's the detective who
and
desires to be like that.
Who's probably gonna take Batman's place.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Robin is a great character, of course. I mean, all three of them are tragic.
I definitely dig his new costume.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, currently in the comics, as opposed to
in the Robin comics.
Yeah, in the regular Batman universe, as opposed to like the red and green. I know the green just didn't suit well with me, because if you like take some of the yellow away, it looks like a Christmas outfit or something.
Like an elf.
Yeah, an elf basically. Yeah.
I like how they've taken Robin and given him his own sort of storylines and things. Like he has a comic book separate from Batman where Robin things go on.
Yeah.
Like some of it shares Batman villains, some of it's his own villains, and like people he's encountered before.
Yeah.
So I like how they do that. I like how they kind of split the Bat family up. And I like Nightwing's plot lines and stuff now.
Yeah, well, let's just segue and just talk about Nightwing.
And then Jason Todd becoming a villain of Nightwing. You know what I mean? That's cool. Like the brothers almost.
Yeah. I mean, because obviously, I mean, as we said earlier, Dick Grayson isn't consumed by the tragedy. He was able to move on and realize, that Batman, wasn't working with him, was not going well.
Yeah.
And just left, quit the event, and then became the awesome character as Nightwing.
I think that Dick Grayson's probably the strongest out of all the Robins to have done all that.
Yeah.
And probably the most like Batman. Honestly, despite Tim Drake being more the detective, I think Dick Grayson's the one that's most like him.
Yeah.
Stubborn.
Well, I mean,
intelligent, skilled, driven.
Yeah.
And the original Robin.